Is influencer boxing good for the sport of boxing? So ever since influencer boxing has kind of became mainstream, which was February 2018, I think that's when KSI fought Joe Weller. Now, yes, Joe Weller had fought Theo Baker before, but the real influencer boxing matchup that took it mainstream was KSI versus Joe Weller way back in 2018. And ever since then, every time there is an influencer boxing event, the same old question gets asked: is this good for the sport of boxing or is it not? Ignore that voice break. So today I'm just going to give my opinion on the whole situation. For me, I don't see how it's not beneficial for the sport of boxing. Um, the main reason being the amount of eyes that these influencer boxing events bring to the sport of boxing. It's unbelievable for the sport. I mean, you've seen other professional boxers talk about it. Now, they are very 50-50 split up the middle, but one that is an advocate for it is Tony Bellew. You know, he says about the impact that this has had on the sport of boxing, and he's definitely right. I mean, the amount of people that will watch a KSI fight or a Jake Paul fight or a Logan Paul fight or whoever their favourite influencer is, and majority of these people will more than likely be inspired by it to give it a go. You know, I'm not everybody will, but I think there is a percentage that will want to give the sport a go. If not give the sport a go, will then want to watch the sport. I mean, especially with Jake Paul and KSI now being on the zone. You know, especially for the Misfits card, which I think what the Misfits audience would be different to what the Jake Paul kind of fights get, because Jake Paul, yes, he has done the crossover fights, but really, he, in terms of influencer boxing, he boxed an Esong Gibb, Deji, which was an amateur fight, but professionally, an Esong Gibb, the basketball player, I forget his name. But other than that, Jake Paul's kind of went a different route where he's been fighting actual fighters. Now, say what you want about them, they're retired, they're MMA fighters, they're not boxers, but his route has went completely different to the likes of a KSI, who predominantly has just fought influencers for his so-called boxing career. So there are two different lanes, I suppose. Jake Paul now, I wouldn't even consider him an influencer boxer. I feel like that guy he's going the traditional boxing route. He has said that he wants to be a world champion, and you can't hate on it. The guy has dedicated himself to the sport now, and people complain about his opponents, and I totally get that. I think this is the issue Jake Paul himself has ran into, where nobody tunes into a Jake Paul fight to watch great boxing, because he's not a great boxer, let's be honest, and the opponents he faces are never great boxers either. But and that's the issue with Jake Paul. You know, fighting these professional boxers now, they don't have a name, so it's basically just being sold off Jake Paul's name. And again, that's his issue. Nobody wants to see Jake Paul really box. You know, they liked it when he was fighting Nate Diaz, Tommy Fury, the whole build-up, the press conferences. That's what made those fights exciting. That's what made the likes of a KSI Tommy Fury fight exciting. You know, it wasn't so... Well, everybody wasn't thinking, oh, this fight's going to be a war, unless you were maybe under the age of 15. People knew what this fight was going to be. It was going to be horseshit. The quality of it was going to be ass. But the build-up, the face-to-faces, the press conferences, the interviews, it built up hype, and it made you want to see what the outcome was. Even though you knew going into it, it was going to be shit. But yeah, that's the main thing that it does for the sport of boxing, which I think is, you can't argue that. It brings a lot of people to the sport of boxing. It brings a lot of new eyes, a new audience to the sport, which can only be beneficial. I don't see how that can't be beneficial. Now, there are some people that do talk about, and I see an argument that is made all the time is, well, a guy who's dedicated his life to the sport is getting paid this. KSI or something is getting, these guys are getting paid so much more money to fight. And boxing is a sport at the end of the day, so if you bring in more eyes that sells more pay-per-views, then of course you're going to get paid more money. Obviously. I get that this guy has dedicated his life to the sport. He's a great amateur career. He's just turned pro and he's getting paid peanuts. And you've got the likes of KSI, who is boxing, another YouTuber or something, just an example. But of course he's going to get paid more. Of course he brings in the pay-per-views. That other amateur boxer, he doesn't bring in as much revenue, as many eyes. So that argument there in itself, I think, is just shit. But like I said, there are two different avenues for the, you know, you've got the Misfits, which is predominantly all influencer boxers on it. And then you've got what Jake Paul's doing. I think the happy medium, which was the KSI 2 or KSI Logan Paul 2, where you have a big influencer fight headline in the card, which is going to get people to buy the pay-per-view, and people will set up and watch it. Like, I know for a fact when Logan Paul fought KSI the second time, I bought the pay-per-view on Sky. I sat up all night, I watched all the other fights. Now I was a fan of boxing by then, but I stayed up, I watched all the fights, but I was really interested in seeing the KSI Logan Paul fight. I didn't really care about the Billy Joe Saunders fight. That didn't really convince me to buy the pay-per-view. It was solely for the KSI Logan Paul 2 fight. And that again just proves my point on what I said earlier. But yeah, what I think would be really beneficial is, obviously Misfits is purely influencer and they're doing a good job of that. Keep that up. It's working. It's making them money. Like I said, it's bringing hype to the sport of boxing. But what I thought was so good about KSI Logan Paul 2 is you had all these professional bouts in the build-up to then the influencer boxers at the end, the big payout, the main event that everybody was tuned in for. And I thought that done great. You had Billy Joe Saunders on there because, like I said, I was one of them. I watched all those other fights in the lead up to KSI versus Logan Paul. And I think that's a great thing to do because you can build up their stardom on that card. Say you have, I don't know, like for example, an amateur boxer who's just turned pro and he gets on that card and say he's the third fight off the main event and he gets a crazy KO. That's clipped. That's going viral from that event. I think instead of promoters complaining about influencer boxing, they should be trying to get involved. Eddie Hearn, he did do the KSI Logan 2 fight, and he did do the Jake Paul and Eason Gibb fight, and he kind of took a step back from it. He said it's not what he's interested in, which is fair enough. But a lot of promoters slate it when really they should be using it to their benefit. So yeah, I just wanted to come on here quickly and give my opinion on influencer boxing. In my opinion, it is so beneficial to the sport of boxing. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the sport of boxing? Is it beneficial or is it not? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And yeah, I'll see you again in the next one.